Yes, yes, y'all. You know what time it is. Time for thedailybreadproject.com. Your daily nourishment, your daily light, your daily positivity in a world full of negativity where the media is eating your brain and keeping you dependent. Got a special guest with me today, as I often do, another member of the Podcast Factory family, and she is here early. Look at her go. Let's all right, let's promote to panelist. I've got Miss Katie Danger from the Everyday Athlete Show coming on board with us today to share the light. And I'm going to get us going live on Facebook, and we are going to jump into this. Let's make sure that everything works.
All right, we good to go?
Whoa, there she is. Prompt. What is up, Katie Danger?
Hey, nothing much. Just want to make sure you can see me, you can hear me, everything good?
Everything is spectacular. And it looks like we're
Awesome.
even going to be able to go live on Facebook with, well, I better not say anything till we get on there. All right. Daily Bread Project. I'm going live. And if you want to share it, it'll be on my page in just a couple seconds, and you can share it to wherever you want. And
Okay.
we'll jump into it. So let's get the screen back up. And we'll get rocking and rolling. We are live on Facebook. Hello to the Facebooks. You are watching thedailybreadproject.com. Got a special guest, another member of the Podcast Factory family, Miss Katie Danger from the Everyday Athlete Show. Katie, what is up?
Nothing much, nothing much. I'm enjoying my Monday. I probably like Mondays more than most people do, so I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Wait a second. Nobody loves Mondays. You got to be kidding me. How come you love Mondays?
Okay, so I like Saturday. Sundays are actually to me kind of like what most people probably think their Mondays are. Because Sunday I feel like I'm ready to go. Like I've had my day off, I've had my Saturday. I know people love to have 2 weekend days, 2 days to reset, but I just need one and then I'm ready to go. So Sunday to me is like, okay, now I get to fill my time with all these things, that I don't normally like to do, meal prep. But I just sit down and do my schedule for the week. So on Monday, I'm excited because I can work, and I admit I get a lot of satisfaction off of getting tasks done and just kind of hitting the ground running.
I thought I was weird. I'm like, can Sunday be over? I just need to get to work.
No, I do. So like even like Sunday 5 p.m. I'm like, my God, I just want to go to bed and get Sunday over with so I can get to Monday. But then I've been practicing gratitude, so I'm like, well, I can fill my time with something I can be grateful for instead of trying to rush through the day.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen for anybody watching on Facebook. For you guys listening to the podcast, you're not missing a ton, but here we go at the Podcast Factory. I just want to scroll down so you guys know what to look for when you're looking for Katie Danger, the Everyday Athlete podcast, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. The last episode that we have here was what happens when you don't eat for 3 days. I think that was your juice fast, wasn't it?
Yep, that was this week's episode, right? So I did that about 3 weeks ago now when I actually did the experiment.
Experiment. And that's one of the things that I find fascinating about you, amongst other things, is that you will go and do experiments on yourself before you bring these things to the athletes. And I respect that because you're talking from experience when you do these things.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to do anything, really. Like isn't that what we're here to do? Educate and actually get hands-on and I don't know, show people what it actually means to do something. Um, I also I say this in my podcast all the time, but I really will try almost anything once. I really, honestly, that's just the way that I am.
You're a maniac. You're a maniac. So thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join me today. I'm pretty sure you know what's going on here, but just in case, I'm just going to lay it out. We're bringing the light every day. The world is full of negative news. The media's got its tentacles wrapped around people's throats, pulling them to the TV and sharing bad news. And I didn't know how to battle that other than getting out here and using the platform that we've all built to bring some positivity. And I know you got tons of positivity. So let's jump into it. What are you doing right now? So you're an athlete, you work out, you go to all the different types of classes, but what's your day look like now? How are you staying fit in this craziness?
One of the hardest things for me is working out from home. It always has been. I've been that person. I've bought tons of equipment. I've made a plan, and then when it comes to execution of the at-home plan, it just hasn't ever worked for me. When I was training for an Ironman last year, it worked for me because it just kind of felt that, training at home made a lot more sense. I can't swim at home, unfortunately. But you can run at home. I mean, you can either get a treadmill, or you can go outside, or you can bike. But when it comes to strength training, I'm not good at working out from home. However, big however, I'm gonna try again, because what I was finding is a lot of my gyms, they've cut down to they're open. Most of them are open, but they've cut way down. You can only have 10 people in a class, including the instructor, so 9. And then classes have changed a lot. There's certain things you can and can't fit into 30 minutes that's safe and effective. So I've kind of found I haven't been satisfied with the classes that I've been attending, just because it doesn't work for me in the time frame. I'm kind of set in a way that I think a workout should progress from A to B, and I need 60 minutes. That's what I like. So this week I'm going to try working out from home. So I spent most of my morning coming up with my schedule and what it's going to look like. So I'm going to try again. I'm just going to give myself that grace and that patience, because I know it hasn't worked for me in the past, but circumstances are a little bit different, and why not try again? I'll just be honest with myself. So that's how I'm staying active. I'm still going to work out, but because certain things haven't worked for me, I'm going to shift and see if I can, implement something new that's more beneficial to me right now.
So what's something new that you're trying from home this week?
Well, one thing I love to do before my gym closed down, it was called Hot Works, and it's an infrared sauna. You literally go in these infrared saunas that fit like 3 people, and you can do high intensity workouts in there, or you can do like yoga or core. I have long-standing hip and knee issues just from years of training. Nothing like that needs surgery, just issues, right? Things that hurt. But this core workout like changed my life, and I was going religiously. I was at 6 weeks, and then bam.
Oh.
They close, right? So I'm like, I have got to keep this part of my routine. I have to. Well, I've done the routine so many times. When I sat down to do it myself the first time, I just was like, oh, I know how to do this. I don't necessarily need this virtual instructor. But the cool thing is, at home, I've got this small little radiator heater. It's portable. So I've set it up in our small room. I close the door so it gets warm. And then I've got a red light that we use at home. So I just turn on the infrared. So I feel like I'm recreating this experience. So keeping the core workouts, and doing them on the days that I was doing them. One is today, and then one is Friday. And then I'm going to reset up my triathlon bike that I had from last year. I've got a trainer. I've got all the kit and caboodle for it. I got to set it up again. And I'm going to do my bike workouts that I normally do when I go to Cycle Bar. I'm going to do those from home. So those are the new things I'm trying.
Look at you. You got your whole gig at home, huh?
I do. I've got all the pieces. It's just now I have to look at them in a different light. Their purpose is the same, but different.
Yeah. Anytime anybody asks me, how are you doing, or are you doing well? My reply is always making the most of it. I mean,
Yeah.
what else can you do?
I know.
Make the most of what you got, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, JR, I don't know if you're ready to transition to this, but my thoughts on this is that life has always been uncertain. I mean, we've said this before, before any of this, before coronavirus was even a word that we knew of, you could wake up any morning and it could be your last day on earth, no matter how healthy you are, how ill you happen to feel. So life has always been uncertain. And once I wrapped my mind around that concept, it changed how I viewed what's happening. I'm like, oh my God, life is always uncertain. You could be in business one day and the next day something happens and you're not in business. Maybe the store burns down. Maybe your website crashes. They don't host it ever again. Lots of things can happen. It doesn't have to be a pandemic. So to me, this isn't about waiting to get back to normal. It's operating. It is a new normal, right? There's a transition period, but at the same time, it's life as usual. It is business as usual. And if business people, fitness people, whatever you're waiting for until it gets back to normal per se, I think that's kind of a shame, because it'll probably never be normal again. It's going to take a while. This isn't going to be just one day we lift the sheet and everything's back to the way that it was. Businesses are open. People are on the streets. So I hope people don't wait. I hope they realize that this is just part of being human. It's what we signed up for. And if you want out, you can get out. But at the same time, like, you just got to operate.
I love that you brought that up, and I want to know where you got that perspective because I remember where I got that perspective, so
Yeah.
I'm curious about where you did.
Brooke Castillo. I've listened to her podcast for a couple years now. It was actually recommended to me by my behavioral therapist, who I go to every now and then. I actually haven't seen her in a while because she's helped me, and I've been able to make some own progress, a lot on my own. But she told me about Brooke Castillo in one of our very first sessions together, and I finally just decided to start listening. But Brooke did she's done a series on, you know, managing through crisis and uh, staying normal when things happen to feel unnormal, and not waiting. When she said that this is how life is, it's always been uncertain and we could die at any moment regardless of the coronavirus. I'm like, oh my God, she's so right. She's so right. Like, what are we waiting for? It's silly to sit around and wait for things to get back to normal. Um, that it blew a fuse in my head that allowed a lot of other things to light up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And that's it. It's like other people say, oh, things are changing and all. And I get that. I mean, if you work at a restaurant or if your store is closed or other things, but us, we can, I mean, I feel blessed, right? I feel like blessed that I'm running business as usual here at the podcast factory. I'm able to work with all my clients because I've always worked digitally, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And I think that it's a wake up call for anybody that doesn't have that because I don't know where you were in 2008, but I was losing my ass in real estate. And I was like, that's never going to happen again. And now we have some uncertainty there, but this business is the hedge against that. And then I'm thinking about other cash flows. So what are you doing? Like, what is there anything that you're doing to stay positive right now as the world is going crazy?
I write my affirmations every single day, but I've been doing that since January. That was part of my New Year's resolution to myself. Uh, I am focusing on my thoughts first and foremost, because ultimately I want to feel good. No matter what I'm doing, I personally want to feel good. I want to be happy. I don't want to be miserable. I don't want to be mad at others. I want to be happy. So I'm focusing on my intentional thinking. How can I be purposeful and intentful in my thoughts to create the feelings that I want to, and then ultimately for that result to happen? Obviously, there's a lot of action before you get to the result, but I really, really think with all the mind work I've done in the past 2 years, because I feel like this is my Super Bowl right now, because I have really struggled mightily since I've been an entrepreneur, starting about 4 years ago now, because that made me so vulnerable. And I had to confront a lot of the pent up bull crap that sits below the surface until you don't really don't know how ugly it is until you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to show the world what I can give them. And you got to open up, and it gets real scary. So I've been doing a lot of thought work for a long time. So I feel like this is my Super Bowl, and this is my opportunity to really go like, okay, Katie, are you ready to take the next step in your business? Can you zig and zag through this crisis? And I use crisis in quotes, but also very, very tenderly, because I know a lot of people are upset about what's happening. But myself, I understand it's going on, but I'm not going to let it hurt me. And staying positive comes down to being in control of my thoughts, which lead to my feelings, and that leads to my actions. And that is the inspiration of years of therapy, podcasts, life coaches, mentors, some paid, some not paid, reading. That's just accumulation and summary of how I'm staying positive. I'm going to control my thoughts, and I'm going to write them down. If I feel, just yesterday, I really had a moment of like, oh my God, I don't I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I opened a brick and mortar store about a year and a couple months now ago, and I really thought it was the next step to reach my customers. And this online thing is great, but at the same time, I had an opposite feeling, like I want to have that touch point and legitimacy that I think a brick and mortar can provide. It in no way, shape, or form has ever been the foundation of my business, because it still has a lot of momentum. It's going. I need to build it a lot. But yesterday I thought, was opening the store a mistake? I've right now I feel like I have a get out of jail free card. Like, if I wanted to bail on it, I could probably bail right now. I could bail. I could call my landlord and say, I'm out, I'm done. I'm going to go out of business. Because a lot of that brick and mortar store business comes from the one-on-one touch points I've created with my customers locally. I go deep instead of wide, and it was working. I had momentum, and I feel like all that's just been cut off. So it was a really ugly feeling. It was an ugly thought. And it kind of just led me down a gross rabbit hole. So luckily, I've got enough training and I had enough sense about me at that moment. I just stopped. I said, I just got to start writing. But I wrote down all the gross stuff that was in my head. I didn't just go like, life is good, life is happy, be grateful. Because at that moment, I couldn't believe it. I, it was going to be hard for me to just go from pit of despair to on top of the world joyful. So I had to kind of make my way back to that point or get back to some sort of neutral. So I wasn't sabotaging myself. It hurts me and it pains me and it's sort of embarrassing to say that I do go through moments where I just want to close the shop doors because everything that I had done for the past year and the relationships I built, they're gone. So bringing myself back to at least neutral and then hope, into happy, I kind of wax and wane. I think we're all there, but managing your emotions is so important. It doesn't matter where you're at on that spectrum. Like you can come back little by little. You don't have to believe the world is perfect at this moment, but you've got to take that intentional work to start thinking of things that you do believe they're just a little bit nicer, a little bit happier, make you feel a little bit better than where you were at.
Gosh, there's so much there, so much there that you just shared, and I want to thank you for being so vulnerable, and then I want to kind of recap what I heard, just in case the listeners aren't putting this all together. And I agree with you. We all get into a funk, and it's ridiculous to pretend that we don't. Like that fear is normal. That
Mhm.
fear is part of life, and that fear is, like you said, what we signed up for when we do what we do. And what I heard you say was you took that fear, you put it on paper. And the way I'm picturing it is you're stacking up all these different fears, all these different negative emotions. And what I start picturing is a rock climbing wall. Like all those fears are little grips you can hang on to, another grip, and I'm going to jump up and I'm going to climb up out of this. So the way that you got yourself at least to neutral was letting that out there. And then I imagine when you look at it, you say, well, is this a real fear? Or is this just something that I'm coming up with? Is this really something that I want to ponder or stay on, or is it something I want to get past?
Mhm.
And that's kind of an interest. Did you come up with that all by yourself? Is that something you've always been doing?
No, absolutely not to come up with myself. I so wish that I would have been equipped with some of these things when I was an adolescent. My life would be different right now. But here we are. Um, no, it started with finally deciding to go to therapy. Finally, yeah, that was a great thing. But then opening myself up to possibilities that maybe we have control over our lives, like maybe we're not a victim to the circumstances of the world. That was a real big shift in my thinking. And then once I realized that I had control, and that's still a work in progress, right? But overall dominion over my life, I believe that I have, regardless of circumstance in the world. And then it came to just exposing myself to other uh, authors, mentors, podcasters that shared the same views that I do. Then I started to realize that you are the company that you keep. And a lot of the company that I was keeping in my mind is friends, business friends, just wasn't working because we're not on the same page anymore. I don't want to commiserate with anybody too long. Not, maybe a little bit, but not too long, right? So, law of attraction, no matter where you've got it from, Abraham, and there's all kinds of other authors who put their spin on law of attraction. That was the next step. Um, and that's just a whole thing too. But ultimately it's that you are in complete control. And if you can get control of your thoughts, you can control your feelings and then you can control the outcomes. But there's always going to be that zigging and zagging that you have to do because we are a physical body in the physical world. And there are things outside of our thoughts and feelings that we can't control. You just can't.
And that's actually want to remind everybody listening is that's what separates us from the squirrels and the pigeons out there is like we can view our thoughts and realize what we want to do or how we're going to take them, what we're going to do with them. We're not working on instinct. Most people will work with that amygdala flaring up, with the media killing them with
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
craziness, but you can say, hey, I can control what I can control right in here.
Hmm.
And so I love that you brought that up. Thank you for that. So I want to, I don't know if this is the right place to go, but I want to talk about what you said earlier, where you decided to take the plunge to be an entrepreneur, and then you dealt with a lot of crap, a lot of mental crap. It's like, How the heck? Like, why would you do that to yourself is the question.
Okay, so when I was younger, I wasn't a bad kid. I did not like to fall in line. And I didn't know that I was falling out of line until, you get to a certain age and you're always in trouble. Um, Teachers don't necessarily like you. One thing that I should have learned earlier on is you can play outside the lines as long as you make other people believe you're playing in their lines. So it's a little bit of adapting to your environment. I should have learned that. I would have been a lot better. But in high school, I liked to work in high school. I had 2 jobs in high school. I loved money. I loved spending money. I was lucky though. My parents, they bought my car. They paid for my insurance. But anything else like fun money, I loved it. And it was like $5 an hour back when I was working, but I still loved it. So I liked money. Uh, then I would say that my first dip into entrepreneurship was when Napster came out. Do you remember Napster?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember how I found out about it, but I was one of the only kids, at least I'm talking like 90, 98, 99. We got a computer and it had the internet. It had DSL, not just dial-up DSL. And so I could download music. And I also had a CDR, so you could read and record and write. I feel so
Nice.
silly saying these things. So I had a CDR and I had learned that I could download these MP3s and then put them on a CD and then I could play it in my car CD player. I'm like, this is so cool. And I thought, well, what if my friends want to do this? I'll charge them for it. So I started taking playlists from people downloading music off of Napster and then putting it on a CD and then my friends paying me like $10 a pop for it. And then of course, Napster stopped working, I think late 2000 something. I still have a beef with Metallica about that, but it's all right. So then I'm like, well, I still like making this money. I like doing this, and I hated school. I thought high school was the dumbest thing in the entire world. It was boring. I mean, none of the skills. I just thought it was silly. I went to a Catholic school as well, and the things I experienced were contradictory to what I thought being a spiritual religious leader was. So that's another story. But I just didn't like what I was seeing. So I'm like, I'm not going to listen to anybody because these adults do not know what they're talking about. So didn't like to go to class. I found out any way that I could to get out of class. I started reading ahead material in the classes and I'd make study guides. So then I wouldn't go to class. I'd sell my friends study guides. And because the teachers, all the tests are just, you start to know exactly what they're going to ask. So I'd make the study guides, I'd make money. Well, then I got in trouble for that. I couldn't make study guides anymore. I had to go to class. So I stopped doing that. And it kind of just stopped from there. I always knew I wasn't going to fit in, but my parents were preaching, go to college, get a job, retire at 65, that whole thing, where that whole like 45 years of your life is just given up to somebody else for something. And I was like, okay, that's what I'll do, but I don't really know what I want to do, what that looks like. So I got like 3 years into college. I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd changed majors so many times. I like to do lots of things, but I don't necessarily love to do lots of things. So I changed majors a lot trying to find my way. And then finally I said, screw this, I'm going to join the military. But I don't really want to join the military full time, so I'll go National Guard because I still don't know if that's what I want to do. But I had no other direction and they would pay for school and they throw money at you. So it seemed like a good combo at the time. So I joined the military for a while. I wanted to go active duty, but unfortunately I'd already signed my life away to the Guard. So the way they work, they don't really make concessions for each other. It's still the Army, but they're different branches.
I have a
So I did
question before you keep going because I've never gotten to ask you this. You've always told me, and this is one of the things we bonded on when we first met, was went to Catholic school, practically got kicked out. I know I got kicked out. I mean, you might have made it through, but I was totally a bad kid. You said your words, never wanted to fall in line. Then what the heck makes you join the military?
because I still do enjoy discipline. I do. When I say that, I mean like people have a common goal. We know when we're going to get up in the morning. We all want the same thing. Don't get me wrong. I clashed a lot, which is one of the reasons I'm not in anymore, is because it just didn't work. I thought about going back in, but every time I come back to is I can't do things the way that I want to do them. I like things that are, if we're results based, we're not methods and systems based, because systems and methods, like, it just depends, right? So I feel like if you just have the result in mind, and I've done that, this is why I'm here, JR. So going back a little bit, I joined the military. I loved it, but I hated it at the same time. I got to do a lot of cool stuff though. I gained a lot of skill, and it certainly helps when it comes to credibility that you've gone through the rigors of being in the military for 7 years or more. But then I started to fall in line. I got a 9 to 5. I worked at the Social Security Administration for a while. Too bureaucratic for me. You cannot help people in that environment. You cannot help people change their lives or improve their situation in that job because you've got to fall in line. Great money, don't want to fall in line. So that didn't work out. And then I started working for the private sector. I go back to the corporate sector. This was my first real 9 to 5. I was working for Berkshire Hathaway, and I was just doing insurance claims, and it was silly stuff. House gets burned down, house gets hail damage, just stuff like that. And that was awful too, because everybody hates you. Everybody hates you. So that sucked. And it was October 2016. I was probably like August 2016. I came home and I told Sammy, my spouse, I said, I want to start my own company. She's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I think I want to sell supplements. I had been thinking about it for a while, and she's like, okay, well, what does that look like? And I had already learned that, I need 20 grand to get started. At least I thought I did. Anyway, I had all this idea, right? But I couldn't just stop working. So for a whole year, I went and I started the business, worked from home after work. Then I started to dabble in do Red H nutrition stuff at work, and it just wasn't working.
You weren't falling in line again.
Yeah, exactly. So I found really quick ways to get my workload at my actual job done and then spend the rest of the day at Red H. It wasn't good work, but it was work, right? Then it was the day of the eclipse, and I might have given you the dates wrong. Whatever the day of the eclipse was, that big global eclipse sort of thing, that was the day I gave my 2 weeks notice. So I gave my 2 weeks notice and I was out. I did double duty for a year. I was ready to get out, even though I still didn't know if I was at a position to get out and just make my own money. I did it anyway. I was just done. I was done. I felt like I had to go all in. I had to go all in and make this happen for real. If I really wanted to do what I wanted to do with my life, because I tried so many things. I tried the Army, I tried corporate life. It just wasn't working for me. So I didn't know anything about budgeting or finance when I first started as an entrepreneur. A lot of that's changed, because if I did, I don't know where I'd be. I got out. I just made the decision. I'm out, I'm done. And I'm going to, it's sink or swim time. And I know that I'm not going to die. So I'm going to swim. It's just going to be a different kind of swim. I want to be freestyle in the ocean, battling the waves someday. But you just kind of go back and forth with your skill level as an entrepreneur as times change and you learn.
So what would you say to people then? We're coming close to the end here. Would you say that what's going on right now, if you're out of work, if you're home, if you've had a dream of doing something, whether it's writing a book, starting a supplement company, anything like that, would you look at what's going on today as an opportunity? And what would you say to these people to motivate them?
Yeah, I would. I think it'd be a great opportunity. And here's why, because I've gone through the same emotions. I mean, JR just told you that I opened a store last year, and I'm like, I'm glad that I started it last year, because I wouldn't start it now, right? Because things would change. But I think there's a great opportunity. You hear words like recession and the economy's down, but I don't think it is, because people always want to be helped in some way. They want to feel better. And there's always going to be a way that you can position yourself as a leader to help people feel better, and whatever that may be. You may be sitting at your desk right now at work watching this, or later, and maybe you want to be a life coach. Maybe you want to be a personal trainer. Maybe you've always wanted to do taxes for a living. There is no better. I know, but everybody's got their thing, right? There's CPAs out there. They're a crazy bunch, but they're out there. So, I just don't think you can stop your dreams until things are better. I know you've read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I know you have. So another thing that I remember from there is, and I thought about this as soon as it hit in my mind that coronavirus was one of those times in history, like the recession, like 2008, is the people, no matter what they had when, the Great Depression happened, when they lost everything or whatever, the people who just went out there and just still made shit happen. I mean, they're the ones who basically seize the day. And there's always an opportunity to seize the day. It doesn't matter when it is. Hopefully it's today for some people. You just have to work through the stuff that goes on in our brain, because that's just what we are. We're human. The great thing is, because we're also human, we can rise above. So you can't wait. You still got to put your foot on the gas, and the gas might not be flooring it. It could just be a little bit, but you still got to go. You got to go.
Momentum over meditation. This is why I love you. You're so inspiring. And what a great way to wrap it up, because you started it with this, you had it in the middle, and you had it at the end, is seize the day. Do something. Take advantage. Stop making excuses. This is, I mean, I hope, guys, girls, whoever's listening, listen again, because that's been the message the entire time from Katie Danger, from the Everyday Athlete Show, and Red H Nutrition. By the way, I've been taking my Red H Nutrition daily over here.
Everyone's an athlete, JR.
Yes, yes. Anything else you want to say as we're wrapping up, Katie?
Don't wait.
Don't wait. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking time to rap with me. Thank you for bringing the light. It's been amazing. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that is a wrap for another episode of the Daily Bread Project.com. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will be back tomorrow.